Owen Carter had one breath left, and it wasn't for him. The lake was a black mirror overhead, sealing him under eyes as unforgiving as steel. His headlamp flickered through the dark like a dying star, revealing the ghostly shape of a yellow school bus pinned to the bottom. Inside, small faces stared back at him through the glass. Wide eyes, white knuckles, silent screams. One of them, Ethan, pressed against the window, his tiny chest rising in frantic bursts. The boy's mask snapped. Water was climbing his chin, his mouth, his nose. Owen's gauge glowed an angry red. Seconds of air left. His chest convulsed, lungs screaming like sirens inside his skull. The rope cinched to his harness floated slack in the water, too far from the hole, too far from hope. He chose without thinking, without hesitation. Owen tore the regulator from his mouth. Bubbles fled like silver ghosts, racing towards the unreachable light above. The cold bit his teeth, his tongue, his soul. He shoved the mouthpiece through the shattered glass into Ethan's trembling hands. The boy inhaled life. Owen exhaled everything. His vision tunneled. The world narrowed to darkness, eyes, and the frantic pulse in his ears. With numb fingers, he yanked his lifeline 3 times. The signal. The rope jerked. The child shot upward, vanishing toward salvation. Owen tried to follow. His hands clawed at nothing. The ceiling pressed down like a coffin lid. Then, movement. The rope came back, cutting through the dark like a serpent of hope. Owen reached, brushed it, missed. By the time they hauled the boy out, Owen's world had gone silent. Could you stay calm even when everything around you is freezing and fading to black? Share your answer and subscribe for more stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. 6 hours earlier, Owen Carter had been sitting at his kitchen table, carefully waxing his old diving mask with the kind of patience that drove his teenage daughter crazy. Dad, seriously? You've been working on that thing for like 20 minutes, Emma said, dropping her backpack by the door, grabbing an apple from the counter. It's just a mask. Owen looked up from his methodical work, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. This just a mask has saved more lives than you've had birthdays, kiddo. All 12 of them? Emma rolled her eyes, but she was grinning too. Besides, I thought you were the backup guy now. You know, not the hero. The words stung a little, even though she didn't mean them to. Owen had been a frontline firefighter and a rescue for 15 years before the ladder truck accident that shattered his left shoulder. These days, he was search and rescue, still important, but definitely not first through the door anymore. The department had been clear about that. Those days are behind me, he said, more to himself than to Emma. I'm the guy who shows up when everyone else needs backup. Emma studied his face for a moment, recognizing the tone. Her dad had been using variations of that phrase for 2 years now, ever since the injury forced him into what he called the second string. She knew he missed the adrenaline, missed being the first one running towards danger instead of the last one called in. Well, I like having you around more, she said, softening. At least backup guys come home for dinner. Owen was about to respond when his radio crackled to life on the kitchen counter. The dispatcher's voice cut through the domestic quiet like a knife. All available SAR units to Millfield Bridge. School bus in the water. Multiple children are trapped. This is not a drill. Owen's eyes met Emma's across the kitchen. She saw something shift in her father's expression. Something she hadn't seen in 2 years. Bus in the lake. Owen was already moving. The storm was a living thing, howling, clawing, tearing at anything that dared to move. Snow stung Owen's face like 1,000 needles as he climbed out of his truck and into chaos. Red and blue lights cut through the whiteout, twisting across jagged shadows of emergency vehicles jammed along the shore. And then came the sound. Not the wind, not the sirens, the screaming. Parents screaming their children's names into a frozen void. One mother on her knees in the snow, sobbing so hard her voice broke apart. Ethan, please, Ethan. Her cries vanished into the gale, but her terror hit Owen like a punch to the ribs. Owen pushed forward, boots crunching through brittle crust of snow, until he saw it. The school bus sat nose first in the lake, a yellow coffin entombed in black water and ice. The back third was barely above the surface, tilted so far the rear door skimmed the water line, and even through the blowing snow, Owen could see faces, tiny pale faces pressed against the window, fogging the glass with frantic breath. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Captain Bennett appeared at his side, hunched against the wind, his mustache crusted with ice. He thrust a gloved hand towards the lake. 14 kids, Bennett said. Drivers out cold in the ambulance, currents ripping under the ice, water temps 34. The bus is sinking by the minute. Owen's eyes tracked the broken guardrail on the bridge, still twisted like a taffy. Tire marks cut through the snow straight to the hole where the lake had swallowed the bus. Where's Brooks? Owen asked, already knowing the answer. Sick. Walker is out of state. Volunteers are en route, but Bennett didn't finish. He didn't need to. Volunteers in these conditions were more of a liability than an asset. Owen turned back towards the lake. The bus shifted slightly, groaning as the ice cracked louder than a rifle shot. The air pocket inside was shrinking fast. Every second, they argued. Water cracked higher over those kids' heads. I'll go, Owen said. Bennett grabbed his arm. You're not cleared for primary entry. You know the rules. Your shoulder. Look at me, Cap. Owen's voice cut like the wind. We don't have rules right now. We have minutes. They stared at each other. Two men with 20 years of history and one impossible decision between them. Finally, Bennett swore and yanked his radio to bark orders. Owen didn't wait. He was already moving towards the SAR truck, his brain clicking into a rhythm older than fear. Gear up, check seals, check valves. The wind ripped at him as he peeled off his jacket and stepped into the dry suit. The fabric was stiff, like frozen rubber, and his fingers barely worked the zippers. When he reached for his tank valve, it stuck. His heart jumped into his throat. He twisted harder. Nothing. For one breathless second, the entire mission centered on that corroded piece of brass. Come on, he hissed through chattering teeth. He slammed the valve with the heel of his hand and twisted. It gave, suddenly, violently, and air hissed through the regulator like life itself. He pulled on his mask. Fog instantly bloomed across the inside lens. He smeared spit, cleared it, and smeared again, until the glass stayed transparent. Bennett clipped the safety line to his harness, leaning close so Owen could hear him over the storm. 10 minutes, Bennett growled. If you're not up in 10, I'm pulling you, ready or not. Owen nodded, already tasting metal from the regulator in his mouth. 10 minutes. It would have to be enough. The first step onto the ice was like stepping onto glass above an abyss. The surface creaked and cracked under his boots as he crawled towards the hole where the bus had punched through. Below, the water was black as midnight, seething with current. He dropped in. The cold hit like a physical blow, driving every molecule of heat from his body. It wasn't water. It was liquid knives stabbing into his veins. His breath exploded in panic bursts, fogging his mask until he forced himself to slow it down. In, 2, Out. 2. Just like training. The world went black the second he submerged. His headlamp carved out a cone of milky light, but it barely touched the murk. Sediment swirled like smoke, stirred by the sinking bus. Owen gripped the guide rope with numb fingers and pulled himself along its path, his shoulders screaming with every kick. Time stretched, darkness pressed, and then, out of the void, the bus loomed. Yellow, monstrous, wrong, windows like black eyes staring into nothing. Owen's heart slammed as he reached the rear door. Jammed, of course it was jammed. He smashed his fist against the glass to get the kid's attention. Movement flickered inside, tiny shapes turning, pale faces hallowed by bubbles. One girl raised her hand, trembling, and pressed it to the glass like a prayer. Locked out with a dozen lives 10 feet away. He unclipped his dive knife and drove it into the safety glass. Nothing. Again, harder. Spider cracks bloomed across the pane like frozen lightning. He struck a third time, shoulders screaming with the effort, and the glass blew inward. A surge of lake water roared into the bus, obliterating the fragile air pocket. The kids' screams were silent underwater, but Owen could feel them, see them thrashing in terror as their last safe space disappeared. He squeezed through the frame, jagged glass tearing his sleeves, blood rippled out, crimson against the green-black void. Inside the bus, hell had broken loose. Kids clawed at him, at each other, wild with panic. Owen grabbed the smallest, a boy, maybe 6, and jammed an emergency regulator into his mouth. Bubbles exploded as the kid sucked air like salvation. Owen clipped him to the extraction line and signaled, "Pull up." The rope went taut. The boy vanished upward. Owen turned to the next child, and the next. Every second cost him heat, air, and strength. His hands were stumps now, his movements thick and clumsy as molasses. The dive computer flashed warnings in angry red. 10 minutes gone, 11. Finally, he looked up from his last regulator snap to see 2 children still pressed against the ceiling. A boy and a girl, holding hands so tight their knuckles were white. No gear left, no time left. Owen checked his gauge. Red, below red. His regulator alarm shrilled in his ears. A high-pitched shriek that cut through the black like a scream. His air was gone. The kids were still inside. The alarm on Owen's regulator chirped, sharp, mechanical, merciless. Red lights pulsed on his gauge like a heartbeat running out of time. Seconds left, not minutes, seconds. He tightened his grip on the dive rope, forcing his mind to stay calm. 2 more, just 2 more. Then it happened. The boy's mask strap snapped. Owen saw it in slow motion. The thin rubber curling like a broken rubber band. The mask spinning free into the dark water. For a heartbeat, the boy didn't move. Then panic hit him like an electric shock. His tiny hands clawed at his face as black water poured into his mouth, choking him. The sound that tore from the boy's throat was muffled by the lake, but still reached Owen like a dagger through his chest. No time, no options. Owen's regulator chirped again, more frantic now, like it knew the truth. He had maybe 30 seconds of air left, maybe less, enough to save himself. If he abandoned the boy. He didn't think, he just acted. Owen ripped the regulator from his mouth. The cold hit him instantly, a flood of liquid knives filling his mouth, his throat, his body convulsed with the raw, animal need to breathe. He crushed it down, shoving the regulator into the boy's mouth and holding it there with both hands until the kid's wide, terrified eyes focused on him. Breathe. Owen shaped the word with his hands. The diver signaled, "Breathe." The boy nodded, lips closing around the mouthpiece like it was life itself. It was. Owen gave the rope 3 hard tugs. The lifeline went taut. The boy began to rise, pulled towards the faint shimmer of the surface far above. Owen watched him go. Every beat of his heart a drum of pain in his ears. His own chest burned like fire now, the kind that starts in your lungs and spreads to your spine, to your skull. Every instinct screamed, breathe, now. But there was nothing to breathe, except 34-degree water that would kill him in one swallow. He turned back towards the little girl. She was still in the bus, tiny hands gripping the seat rail, her mask fogging from fast, shallow breaths. Her eyes locked on Owen's as if to say, "Don't leave me." Owen pressed his palm against the glass between them, a silent promise, "You're next." But his body wasn't listening anymore. His muscles felt carved from ice, his movements slow, clumsy. The edges of his vision darkened until only the girl's face and the dim glow from his headlamp remained. Up above, light shimmered faintly through the ice, a pale, unreachable moon. Owen stared at it, and in that flickering glow, another image formed. Emma, his daughter, standing at the kitchen table, grinning as she stole a piece of bacon. "You're just the backup guy now, Dad, not the hero." His lungs seized violently. Reflex screamed louder than willpower. He clamped his jaws shut so hard his teeth ached, refusing the water that begged to rush in. Then the rope came back down. He saw it spinning through the green murk. A salvation line waited with a carabiner. He reached for it with fingers that felt carved from stone. 6 inches away. 5. 4. His gloves brushed the rope, slid off. Too slow. Too cold. Too late. Owen clawed at the water, but his body wasn't obeying commands anymore. His arms floated uselessly at his sides as darkness swept in, soft and final, asleep. The rope came back down, but too late. Owen came back slowly, like breaking the surface after sinking too deep for too long. At first, there was nothing but sound, a distant thud, thud, thud that he realized was his own heartbeat, then voices, muffled and warping, like people talking underwater. His core temp is stabilizing. "Don't take off the O2 yet." Then came the light, blinding white stabbing through his eyelids. He tried to turn away, but his neck felt frozen. Heavy blankets pressed down on him like sandbags. Everything smelled of antiseptic and melted snow. He was alive. Somehow, he was alive. Owen opened his eyes. The ceiling above him was canvas, green, rippling faintly from the wind outside, a field hospital tent. The kind they set up when there wasn't time for real walls. His chest ached with every breath. An oxygen mask fogged with each exhale. His skin burned and froze at the same time. His nerves confused by the fight between heat packs and hypothermia. His throat worked around a single word. "The kids." The voice that answered wasn't a medic. Every one of them. Owen turned his head, or tried to, and saw Emma sitting in a metal folding chair, wrapped in a borrowed parka, her cheeks blotchy from crying. She reached for his hand, and he felt the smallest squeeze through layers of gauze and IV tubing. "They're all safe, Dad. All 14. Her voice broke on the number. Owen closed his eyes. Relief hit so hard it almost hurt. For a second, the world swam in and out of focus, like his body didn't know what to do without the constant weight of survival. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped through the mask. "Like hell I shouldn't." Her grip tightened. "They called the families to the hospital. Mom's on her way too. They didn't know if you'd make it." Owen swallowed hard, wishing for words big enough to hold the moment. None came, so he settled for the truth. "I'm okay," he whispered. "Liar." But Emma was smiling now, and it made the pain worth it. Hours blurred past in fragments, medics checking vitals, Captain Bennett stopping by with a grim face that broke into the smallest smile when Owen cracked a joke about the coffee. News crews hovered like vultures outside the cordoned area, their camera lenses glinting like eyes. By late afternoon, the snow had stopped. The storm that had nearly killed 14 kids and him left behind the sky scrubbed clean and brittle blue. They wheeled Owen outside, wrapped in more blankets than a newborn, insisting he stay in the chair. He was arguing about it when he saw them. 14 kids in oversized parkas, boots too big, hats pulled low, standing in a crooked line were soldiers who hadn't learned formation. Each one held a handmade sign. Thank you, Owen. Our hero, you saved us. The markers had run in the snow, the colors bleeding like watercolors, but Owen could read every shaky letter. Behind them stood their parents. Some are crying silently, some are holding each other like lifelines. These were families who'd imagined the worst kind of night, who'd pictured coffins instead of reunions, and now this. Owen felt something hot break his eyes, and it wasn't the wind. The kids started forward, all of them, but one broke free and ran ahead, his boots kicking up clumps of snow. Ethan, tiny in his borrowed coat, hair still damp from the lake, cheeks raw from the cold. He stopped just long enough to drop his sign in the slush before hurling himself into Owen's arms. The impact drove the air from Owen's lungs. Not that he had much to spare, but he held on, arms closing around the boy like steel bands. You gave me your air, Ethan mumbled against his neck. His voice was muffled, but Owen felt every word like a brand. Why did you do that? Owen pulled back, hands on the boy's shoulders. He wanted to tell him everything, that fear had nothing to do with the choices like that. That sometimes you just see the line and know you're the one who has to cross it. But all he said was, because you needed it more than I did. Ethan's brow furrowed. But you could have died. Owen managed a crooked smile. Yeah, but you would have for sure. The boy stared at him for a long moment. Then he nodded like he understood something bigger than numbers. Kids were funny that way. They knew truths adults dance around. Will you teach me? Ethan asked suddenly. When I'm big, to do what you do? Owen blinked. Out past the crowd. Cameras clicked. Reporters were already spinning headlines about the diver who gave away his last breath. But none of that mattered. Just this kid, this moment. When you're ready, Owen said softly, I'll be here. The boy's eyes shone. I want to save people too. Owen squeezed his shoulder, then live big enough for both of us. As the crowd closed in, as parents thanked him with words that felt too heavy to hold, Owen caught Emma's gaze over Ethan's head. She was crying again, but this time her smile was steady. And in that moment, with snow crunching under boots and a child's arm still locked around his neck, Owen understood something he hadn't before. Breath wasn't what kept you alive, connection was. And that day, on a frozen lake in the middle of nowhere, connection had pulled 14 kids and one man back from the dark. 15 years later, the lake was quiet. No flashing lights, no screaming parents, just a flat sheet of gray ice under a pale winter sun. Owen Carter stood at the shoreline, hands in his jacket pockets, watching the new generation take the plunge. Out on the ice, a fully geared diver slid into the cut hole with practiced ease, his movements clean and deliberate. When the head broke the surface again, Owen smiled. Nice form, he called. What's your time? The diver yanked off his mask and grinned, teeth flashing white in the cold. 3 minutes 40, Ethan Blake said. His voice was deeper now, steady with the kind of confidence you only earn. 23 years old, lean and strong. Ethan moved like a man who belonged in this water. Want me to run it again? Make it count, Owen said. The state's cold water rescue program had grown into something massive since Millfield Bridge. Over 200 divers trained, dozens of lives saved, protocols born in panic that night. The breath transfer, the layered signals, the rapid rope rotations were now standard across 12 states. But Owen's proudest achievement wasn't written in any manual. It was standing on this ice, living proof of why they do this. Ethan finished the exercise in record time and waded ashore, peeling off his mask with a grin that took Owen straight back to that night. That same grin, only older now, tempered by years of purpose. You're ready, Owen said simply, clipping the shirt tag to Ethan's harness. That night after training, Owen drove to Millfield Bridge. The bridge had been rebuilt, stronger this time, but the water below was the same endless black. A memorial plaque gleamed near the shore, rimmed in frost, in recognition of the Millfield Bridge rescue. 14 lives saved through courage, sacrifice, and the unwavering belief that every life has value. Owen crouched in the snow, brushing ice crystals off the words. His reflection looked back at him in the polished metal. Older now, hair streaked with gray but still standing. Footsteps crunched behind him. Ethan joined him at the plaque, dressed in a thick jacket, breath streaming in the cold. Thought I'd find you here, Ethan said softly. Just remembering, Owen replied. They stood in silence, the lake frozen solid, the wind whispering across the surface like distant voices. Snowflakes drifted down, catching in their hair. Finally, Ethan spoke. What were you thinking back then, when you gave me your air? Owen didn't answer right away. He watched a single snowflake melt against his glove, then looked at Ethan in the eye. I was thinking about my daughter, about you, about how some promises matter more than breathing. Ethan nodded, understanding in his gaze. Owen smiled faintly. True heroism isn't about holding your breath, it's giving it away when someone else needs it more. And in that stillness, those words carried like a vow across the ice, across the years, across the endless dark water that still held their story. Everyday heroes are all around us.